welcome to Dukascopy TV. Today I'm joined in our Geneva studio with Dr. Frank Hollenbeck, Professor of Finance at the International University of Geneva. Welcome, Dr. Frank.
Thanks for having me.
Not a problem. Well, you're here to discuss the ECB with us today, which I understand you recently wrote an article about. So let's explore that a little bit further. Everyone is expecting the ECB to bring out the QE canon tomorrow, January 22nd, at its meeting. So this is surprising since it seems to be a violation of the Maastricht Treaty, which states, of course, overdraft facilities or any other type of credit facility with the ECB or with the central banks of the member states in favour of community institutions or bodies, central governments, regional, local or other public authorities, other bodies governed by public law or public undertakings of member states shall be prohibited, as shall the purchase directly from them by the ECB or national central banks of debt instruments. So is this a violation of the treaty, Dr. Frank?
Well, if you read the treaty, you get the impression that the ECB could purchase government bonds on the secondary market. However, this was actually clarified by a 2010 convergence report clarification on the 1993 Council resolution. That was number 3603. And it basically said is that the prohibition includes any financing of the public sector's obligation vis-a-vis third parties. Okay? So in other words, this makes it crystal clear that any QE to purchase government bonds, direct or indirect, violates EU rules. Now, the ECB claims, on the contrary, that intent matters. In a legal opinion dated March 2010 on independence, confidentiality, and the prohibition of monetary financing, the ECB indicated that prohibition of monetary financing prohibits the direct purchase of public sector debt, but such purchase in the secondary markets are allowed in principle, as long as such secondary market purchases are not used to circumvent the objective of Article 123 of the treaty. In other words, purchase of government bonds for price stability is okay as long as the purchase of government bonds is not to finance government expenditures, okay? So in other words, if I eat a donut and it violates my diet pledge, it's okay if the purpose of eating the donut was to please grandma, okay? In other words, if I find enough made-up excuses, I can do basically anything I want, in the sense that the government, which is the rule maker, is basically violating its own rules.
So the central bank claims it must engage with this QE because of the risk of deflation in the Eurozone. So is there such a danger, Dr. Frank?
Well, for me, the 2% target is kind of a made-up excuse, okay? As though a drop in oil prices and previously a strong euro would cause an imperfect index, which is the CPI, to temporarily drop below zero, as though calamity would strike Europe if we ended up with this imperfect measure recording, you know, below zero, okay? And it's just, for me, it's just silly, okay? We have to remember that in a capitalist economy, okay, we have changes in relative prices. And these changes in relative prices occur all the time, okay? They basically are key to reflect society's changes in demand. So in other words, what we have is prices basically serve a critical function of allocating resources where society wants it the most. Okay. Now, what's happening here is, in the case of oil prices, is that the central bank is saying we need to change all other prices to compensate for this change in oil prices. So they're basically interfering with relative prices. So in other words, they're basically interfering with the most important aspect of capitalism, which is changes in relative prices. For me, this is a big excuse. So I talked about deflation in this article, that there is really no theoretical and empirical reason to fear deflation.
So will the ECB's quantitative easing be effective?
Well, you kind of have to wonder why they're doing this quantitative easing, okay? Because is it to spur investment or consumption spending? The answer must be no, because interest rates are already almost zero. Okay, is it to spur inflation, to reduce real wages so that we have a spurt in employment under the concept of the Phillips curve? That's unlikely given the fact that it does have a mandate to keep prices below 2%. So in other words, you have to wonder, what's the reason? Is the reason to make rich bankers richer so that we have a transfer of wealth from the poor and the middle class to these rich bankers, and that somehow these rich bankers, by their extravagant spending, will somehow trickle down to the overall economy? Honestly, is this serious economics? My answer is no. Okay. The best monetary policy is actually no monetary policy. Every euro that the central bank prints is a tax on cash balances. Okay. A tax no one has voted for. Okay. The central bank was actually created with the objective of counterbalancing the negative effects of fractional reserve banking. Okay. If anything, it's made things worse. Okay. Suppose that you had someone who constantly screwed up his job, causing the company to lose millions. Wouldn't you fire him? Probably. Okay. My question is when are we going to kill the beast before it kills us? Okay. I'm afraid that we may already be too late.
We'll be sure to be watching that meeting very closely tomorrow. Thank you so much for joining me, Dr. Frank.
Thank you for having me.
Well, that's all from Dr. Frank and myself for now, but do keep clicking back to Dukascopy TV for regular updates and exclusive interviews. Bye for now.